So we're ready to go? Okay. We'll call to order the Wednesday, August 6, 2025 meeting of the Clark County Clean Water Commission. First action course of business is roll call vote. Alice?
Lisa Taravello. Here. John Chisel.
Here.
I think they're not seeing us. We go to fix the camera. So you're not seeing us?
We are not. I see Alice and Jennifer's beautiful faces.
It could be.
I see the whole room, but I have the county set up, so it might be different.
We're seeing the whole room as well. It's on Alice's.
Oh, is it just on my end? Okay. Okay, maybe I'll leave and come back after roll call. Sorry about that.
No worries. Okay. Because I even had IT help make sure it was verified and it was, but she's obviously with us too. So Alejandra Cortez resigned effective July 28th. Glenda Willie.
Yep.
Ted Gaithy.
Here.
Emily Hess. Not present. Allison Schweitzer.
Present.
And Rudy Salacori. And he emailed saying he would not be able to make it.
Okay, the next order of business is to approve the June 4 and July 16, 2025 meeting summaries. Assume that you've all had a chance to look at those. Are there any changes, additions, or corrections to either set of meeting summaries?
I updated the changes.
I had sent a few to Alice.
Okay.
I sent a few to Alice as well. So.
Okay.
Thank you. Mm-hmm.
So is there anybody online that has any comments about the two sets of minute summaries, meeting summaries? Okay.
No.
If those changes have been made, then all those in favor of approving the minutes of June 4 and July 16 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And Ted,
Aye.
I'm assuming you were doing the motion. Who was the second?
I'll second that.
Are there objections to the minutes? None, the motion carried. Next order of business is public comments. Do we have anyone online who wishes to comment?
No, there were no. Staff did not receive any public comments.
The next order of business is the Clark County Comprehensive Plan presentation.
Real quick before we get started, just for the benefit of Jenna, should we do an introduction? Would that be helpful? So you know who everyone is? Sure. This is our first time meeting. In person, yes. Do you want to start? Yeah.
Well, hi everyone. My name is Jenna Kay, and I'm a long-range land use planner in the community planning department here at the county. So I'll be giving the presentation on the next video. Cool. I'm Tracy Travalo. I've been on the board for a year and a half, I think, and I'm on the Conservation District Board, and I volunteer a lot for the Backyard Habitat Program.
I'm Glenda Willie. I'm the vice chair for the commission. Been here about the same time as Tracy, and spare time do some nonprofit work in the community. I reside in Camas. I represent the Lacamas Creek watershed. So, just for busy.
Hi, Ted Gaithy, current chair this year of the Clean Water Commission. This is my third year. I guess I'm the senior member of this body. It's only 3 years, which is always kind of amazing. I've been very involved with water quality stuff for a long time. Watershed Alliance of Southwest Washington, Friends of Vancouver Lake, and Grant Stewart on the Columbia Land Trust Board of Directors. So it's environmental stuff has been a big issue in my life.
Hi, Jenna. I'm John Chattel. So, obviously some emails from me. So, my former life, I worked for the U.S. Forest Service. I retired at the end of 2023. Focused on
say, species of special status, those that were listed in the Endangered Species Act, what we call the Forestry Census species. My background is fisheries and hydrology, though. And in addition to this, I volunteer at Fish and a few other things. And kind of, well, I make that. And travel, lots of travel.
Virtual land.
Want to go, Allison?
I'm happy to. Hi, Jenna. I'm Allison Schweitzer. I live in Ridgefield, although I actually work for King County as a remote employee. I manage our pollution identification and correction program, and I'm also managing a grant project right now doing a stormwater parks feasibility analysis to figure out where we can place stormwater parks within the county. So I've been on the Clean Water Commission, shy of a year. So I'm a newbie here, but thrilled to be here and looking forward to plugging in more with our clean water efforts here at Clark County. Nice to meet you.
Hi, Jenna. I'm Jenny Coker. I'm the Deputy Director of Public Works. Really happy to be here and looking forward to your presentation.
Awesome. Well, thank you. It's nice to meet all of you. All right, should I dive in? Jump into it. Okay, so I'll get started. So as I mentioned, my name is Jenna and I work in the community planning department. And I've been serving as the project manager for the county's current climate project, and that I'm going to talk to you about today. And we are working to implement new state climate change planning legislation here in the county. So I'm going to give you some background on what we've been doing, and then make sure there's plenty of time for questions and discussion, how it relates to clean water, things like that by the end. All right, let's go to the next slide. So I'm going to start really big picture and get more and more specific as I go. So I'm going to start by just giving some general background information on what a comprehensive plan is, because this project relates to that. I'm then going to go more specifically into the climate project work we've been doing, talk about some key definitions and data that's sort of a foundation for the work we're doing. And then we'll wrap up by talking about some of the proposed policies that are on their way, making their way to council eventually, and wrap up with what's next in terms of where we are in the process and what's to come, and then any questions that you have. Next slide. So what is a comprehensive plan? Next slide. Okay, so the comprehensive plan, it's a long-range policy guide that manages population growth and development over a 20-year period. The Growth Management Act, or GMA, is the state law that provides the legal framework and requirements of comprehensive planning for counties and cities in the state. And we are required by law to periodically review and update these comprehensive plans. So we are on every 10 years, you have to revisit your comprehensive plan and see if you need to update it. And when you update, you're updating for things like changes in state law that you need to make sure your plan is current with. You have to look at new population numbers and things like that.
Can I ask you a question
Sure.
about that? Do they, when they do that, do they also see what goals have been met and, or in the plan currently?
Yeah, so it's sort of the key things we're looking at are changes in state law, like let's make sure we're consistent with those, making sure it's current. So if you've already done something that you don't need to keep doing, you might say we can delete this, that kind of thing. So that would be, I think, in alignment with what you're saying. And then we need to look at our population forecast to make sure our plan accommodates the population projected here, and that's based on state projections that apply to the county, and then also there's some requirements on planning for enough housing to accommodate that population. But there's also provisions on protecting the environment while you're planning for that growth and development. The county originally adopted its first comprehensive plan in 1994, and it lasted its big update in 2016, and we are now working on another update in 2025. Okay, next slide. Growth Management Act, it's a really big law. It's a major land use planning law in the state. It has 15 goals. None of them have higher priority than the other. So they're up on the screen there just for reference. And so comprehensive plans need to balance all of these goals. And the climate change and resiliency goal, which is in the right column, second from the bottom, that is the newest goal that was recently added into the Growth Management Act. Next slide. And the comprehensive plans themselves, that's the cover of our current plan. It's about this thick. It's a big document. And we have these, they call them elements, these required elements or components of the plan. Most of our elements are listed up there. Some are mandatory under state law, others are optional. So that's, again, just there for reference. And most of the way ours is organized is most of those elements each have their own chapter, where we have background information and then a set of policies that are, helping align with the county's vision, but also meeting the state requirements around that topic. Next slide. And then this is our overarching schedule for our current update to this document. There's 4 key phases. So we have project initiation, shaping the plan, reviewing and refining the plan, and the adoption process. So it will end with the county council voting to adopt it. And as you can see, the check marks show things we are done with. And we're almost through the shape the plan phase. We are moving into the last 2 phases of this update process. So we still have a ways to go, even though we kicked off the project in early 2023.
And by state law, when is it due?
It is, ours is due end of December 2025. Next slide. And I see some hands, Devin and Alice. Should I keep going or pause as we go? What's your recommendation? What is your preference? Oh, I'm fine stopping as we go. It just will make my presentation longer. So
Go ahead, Allison.
A super quick question. I saw
Yeah.
it was the 20-year timeline was from 2015 to 2035, but now I heard you say that it's 2025 to 2045 is the next one. So why are we doing it 10 years sooner than the cutoff?
yeah, so it's a 20-year plan and we update it every 10 years. It used to be every 8 years. The state keeps changing the law, but right now it's every 10 years. So it's a 20-year plan that you revise every 10 years. So you never get to the end of the 20 years, but you're supposed to be looking past, you're looking long-term, but knowing things will change along the way. Cool. Okay, so that was my very quick recap of what comprehensive planning is. And now I'm going to talk about the climate work because it is a piece of this comprehensive plan update that we are working on. So House Bill 1181 was signed into law in 2023 by the state legislature passed it. And this legislation added a new climate change and resiliency goal to the state's Growth Management Act. And with the addition of this new goal, the law now requires that the county add a climate element or chapter into its comprehensive plan. And this element has to do 2 things. It needs to address resilience and it needs to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Some other key themes in this legislation, and you can find this online, it's like a 50-page law, but some other themes if you were to read through it. There's the topic of environmental justice shows up for the first time in the Growth Management Act through this law, and it requires us to develop policies that benefit those most vulnerable in our community to climate impacts. And there are also some requirements on use of best available science in our work. And so we make sure what we're doing is scientifically credible. And the legislation also requires that the State Department of Commerce provide guidelines for local governments to follow in order to implement this. So Commerce is the state agency that gives us sort of technical advice as we work on implementing this. So I mentioned our due date is end of December 2025 to add this in, and it's part of the whole comp plan update. So it would get adopted at the same time as the whole updated comprehensive plan. The other thing I'll mention is that this, every county, we're implementing this in waves. So we're in the first wave of implementers for this new legislation. So no one's through this yet. We're in the first round of folks attempting to implement the legislation. But there are plenty of other places in the state who've done climate planning, you know, and have climate action plans, some counties and cities, but none of them, you know, did that work under the framework of this law. So,
And quick question.
Yeah.
Is it true, didn't they extend or offer like an extension of a year for this element or?
so our due dates for this align with the due dates for the comp plan. So we got a 6-month extension
Okay.
for both. And yes, so it used to be June, now it's December.
Okay.
Yep, great. All right, let's go to the next slide. Okay, so just a little bit more about what's required under this new legislation. So for the resilience part of our work, we need to identify goals, policies, and programs the county will pursue over the next 20 years to identify, protect, and enhance natural areas to climate impacts, identify, protect, and enhance community resiliency, which includes social, economic, and built environmental factors consistent with environmental justice. And we need to address natural hazards that are created or aggravated by climate change here in the county. And the sub-element requires that we prioritize actions that benefit overburdened communities that will disproportionately suffer from the compounding environmental impacts and natural hazards due to climate change. To the next slide. For our greenhouse gas work, we need to similarly identify actions the county is going to take over the next 20 years to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and vehicle miles traveled per person. And we have to do this without increasing emissions elsewhere in the state. So we're not allowed to push our pollution to our neighbors.
Yeah.
And these actions also need to prioritize reductions that benefit overburdened communities to maximize co-benefits of reduced air pollution and environmental justice. All right, next slide. This is our high-level project timeline. We have 5 phases of work, and we are about to enter phase 5. But we started by exploring climate impacts in the county and developing an initial draft resilience policy list. We did a greenhouse gas inventory and used that to develop an initial list of greenhouse gas reduction policies. We then did a lot of iterative work to revise and refine those policy lists, which I'll talk about our advisory groups in a moment. So put a recommendation forward that staff is then going to bring forward into the adoption process with our planning commission and county council. Okay, next slide. Okay, so we've done quite a bit of community engagement work so far as part of this project. So we've done quite a bit of the community-wide engagement opportunities, but also worked with 3 advisory groups along the way. So we had a community advisory group, or the CAG for short, which was a group made up of 20 people. They were appointed by the county manager. And this group represented a really wide range of interests. So we had people who work in building and development. We had people working in environment and natural resource sectors, and people representing community interests like youth and health and things like that. This group was charged with using a consensus-based process to recommend a list of goals and policies for the county to implement as part of its climate chapter, consistent with House Bill 1181. So we really charged that group to hash out the issues where they didn't necessarily agree, but making sure it was in alignment with the requirements of this new law.
That's how you challenge it.
Yeah,
It was.
very tough.
And then we had an Environmental Justice Coalition, or EJC, and this was a group of 15 community-based organizations here in the county that we contracted with to help us with our community engagement. So these organizations all serve overburdened community members and helped us collect feedback throughout the project that helped inform the proposed policy list. This group also helped develop an equity lens, and they helped us apply it to review draft policies and provide feedback using that equity lens.
Could you provide some examples of the groups that advised you on this particular subject?
Yeah, and just for reference, those links will take you to the list, but let's see. So we had, Council for the Homeless, for instance, the Vancouver NAACP brand. We had Fourth Playing Forward, and
Like
LULAC had representation, Odyssey, I never remember their full name, Odyssey World International Education Services. I don't know if I got that right. But so several folks who are really focused on serving more vulnerable community groups, and and climate was not the focus of most of these groups' work, but they are they have the connection in the community with folks who were hoping to serve them.
Did you contract with each of them individually, or did you use like community engagement liaison services with cells or anything like that?
We contracted with each of them individually. We were fortunate to have the help of some public health staff who were helping me with this work. This was not a solo effort, and they really managed all of the contracting with the CBOs.
Wow.
And so I would not have been able to do that myself. So it was very helpful to have folks who, they split up the organization that they would manage the contracting and all the invoicing with. And we were very fortunate to have a grant that provided the funds for us to be able to then have students organizations.
Then another quick question.
Yeah.
Is there any kind of a standardized tool or mechanism that all people that are required to use this climate action or do the climate planning can standardize, like what defines a vulnerable population? How, is it an economic level? Is it is it a combination of factors of economic and social? Is it health, cohorts, or how do they kind of, I guess, quantify that in some way to make it an apples to apples kind of comparison, so everybody's kind of looking through the same lens, I guess.
Yeah, so in a little bit, I am going to look at some of the definitions, which include, there's a new definition in state law for overburdened community and vulnerable population. So we have the definitions that I'll share with you. And they're still very high level, right? So I think that is something that I think as we move towards, once this gets adopted and moves towards implementation, I do think figuring out what tools make sense, because we're working on some high level policies, but we'll need to, how do you turn, action's going to have to be in alignment with that, right? So what are the right tools to use moving forward for the various things we're going to do? So I'll show you some things we have, but I do want to, there's a lot of work to be done and figured out. Let's see. So then we did have a third group, which was our technical review team, called our partner agency team, or PAT. And this group was made up of county staff from various departments, also partner agencies like staff from our local cities, the ports, fire districts, school districts, hospitals, things like that. And they reviewed and gave us feedback or answered questions we had as needed as we worked through the process. So in short, we had a lot of people providing feedback over about 18 months worth of work. Let's go to the next slide.
Jenna, just a quick question.
Yeah.
I know you have a glossary of terms,
Yeah.
but does your document define resiliency?
I will show you a definition in state law in just a moment. Okay, but before I go there, I just want to share a snapshot of some of the images from the Environmental Justice Coalition's work. So they helped us over the course of a year hear from more than 2,000 community members, and helped, staff did some engagement, but they really did the bulk of it. And through more than 90 different engagement activities across all the organizations. And we provided materials, like core project materials in 12 languages. And this is just a sampling of the things that those organizations came up with. So there was a lot of surveying, like we developed surveys that everyone could use as a basis for questions to ask, but they were, some of them were tapping that onto existing events they were already doing for the organization they work for. Others wanted to create a new standalone, event. And they were very creative. Some folks were, posting things on social media. So anyway, that just gives you a flavor of some of what that looked like when we did contract with a community organization and, work together on types of questions to act, but then they had a lot of freedom on coming up with how to do that in a way that made sense with the community that they work with.
And it looks like, I was gonna ask a question about this,
Yeah.
that you were able to utilize incentives of participation. I'm seeing like snacks and gift cards, and is that something that your team handled, or really embedded contracts with the CDOs to disperse?
Right. It was we embedded in the contracts with the CBOs. So I could go into details with you on the
We
side
should talk
on
on the
the
side, because
how
we're
we're
working
structured
on
it.
that right
Yeah.
now and trying to develop like a policy for and procedures for incentive development.
Yeah.
We don't have one yet.
All right. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. One more. Okay. All right, so that was sort of the backup of the legislation and a little bit how we did our work. I'm now going to transition into some of the core definitions, which I think you all have highlighted some of the things you're interested in, and then also some of the data that's behind the policy work. So we'll start with resilience. So there is a definition of resilience written into RCW 78.65.010, and it says climate resilience means the ongoing process of anticipating, preparing for, and adapting to changes in climate and minimizing negative impacts to our natural systems, infrastructure, and communities. And so I just want to highlight the term changes in climate in that definition and dig into that a little bit more. What do we mean when we say changes in climate here in Clark County? So let's go to the next slide. So when we look at climate projections for unincorporated Clark County under a business as usual scenario, we see that the county is projected to have, I know you can't read the very fine print, but we are projected to have more hot days, more likely summer drought, more high fire danger days, and more days with smoky air, more extreme precipitation events, more frequent and severe flooding along certain streams and rivers, and more likely landslides in certain places. All of this data comes from the University of Washington Climate Mapping for Resilient Washington web tool. So that's one of our core resources, but it's online. They've got interactive tools that you could look up information. And this is just a handful of metrics from there. There's actually a lot more on that website.
But the same as the climate impacts group.
It comes out of that group, yes. So when we say a changing climate here in the county, this is what we're talking about, changes in specific natural hazard event frequency or patterns. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. So our task under this new law is to improve Clark County's resilience to those hazards.
Jenna?
Yeah.
Jenna, can I ask you a question if you go back to the other slide?
Yes.
These all make sense to me, but another thing that we're seeing are disruptions to our energy grid from high windstorms. I don't think it's happening in Clark County, but in Oregon, PGE sometimes goes through preventative power shutoffs during extreme dryness. They're trying to prevent a wildfire from a wind event. So I'm wondering, is there anything connected with wind and or energy? I guess that would be connected also to the extreme heat.
Yeah, so that is a great segue. So these are the kind of prime hazards that tie to the climate change. And the wind, extreme precipitation it's extreme precipitation and storms or something like that. So that might be wind, is in that bucket as well. But if we go to the next slide, here to get more to your question, so those are the hazards, but we're not planning to change the hazards, right? Like here in the county, we're not going to change a global, climate patterns. But what we're planning for are the impacts of those hazards. So we want to understand what the impacts are and how we can be more resilient, so better prepared, better adapted, so that we can either avoid, certain impacts or be better prepared to respond to those impacts when they happen. So the example of the electrical grid would be an impact of something like more wildfire, more wind, something like that. So it's not the hazard itself, but a secondary hazard essentially related to it. So again, the slides have a link here to a document that we have a table that kind of summarizes the climate impacts here in the county tied to each of those hazards. The guidance we're following, had us look across 11 different sort of sectors, all sorts of assets and aspects of community. So we had some really big tables, but we synthesized them into a summary table, which is linked there if you are interested. But I pulled out 2 examples that I think relate to what you all are focused on. So one is, we're expecting overwhelmed stormwater drains that can lead to localized flooding or stormwater runoff into local waterways. And we're expecting to see more reduced water quality from heat and or tide pollution runoff. So that's just 2 examples of many when we think through all those hazards and what the implications might be.
So Jenna, with building resiliency, I'm trying to think of an example. So a company with drought, you have lower stream flows, in the summertime, because you have less, let's say, snow melt. So building resiliency would be trying to look at water uses to find things that are more efficient to lead water into the streams, or looking at properties that have good groundwater recharge to protect that infiltration. So we're maintaining that, infiltration into the stream. So some of those things are building resiliency into the ecosystem.
Yeah, I think those are fine examples on, okay, right, we know water is going to be lower in the summer, so could be higher at times in the winter, right? So changes in those water flow patterns. And so thinking through what are things within our control that we could do, right? So, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, let's go to the next slide. Okay, I'm going to quickly talk about greenhouse gas emissions, which may seem less related to what it is that you all are doing and focus on as a group. But I think it's still important to share because I think it does relate to water quality. So this is the state's definition for greenhouse gas emissions reduction, which means actions taken to reduce or eliminate the emissions of greenhouse gases, present and future, in order to reduce the rate and extent of climate damage. And if we go to the next slide. Oh, other way, I think. There we go. So the county, we conducted a greenhouse gas inventory, which is really an accounting exercise to try to track the sources of emissions in the county and to try to quantify them. And it serves as a baseline for us to measure against moving forward and to see how well we're doing over time. And so this slide shows the results of that. It's based on 2022 data. And so we have about 1.5 million metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent being produced in a year in unincorporated Clark County. And so things like methane get converted into their equivalent in terms of carbon dioxide. That's why it's carbon dioxide equivalent is the metric. And you can see, the percentages of where those emissions are coming from. And the biggest sources of emissions are tied to the gasoline and diesel used in vehicles in the transportation sector. And then the building energy sector, the largest sources of emissions are tied to the sources for our electricity and natural gas used in the energy used in our buildings.
For gas piped into the building or the natural gas that we
So the natural gas used at the River Road plant counts as the greenhouse gas emissions in our electricity sources. And then the natural gas that's used, to heat a home or to cook and that kind of thing, that would count as the natural gas emissions tied to natural gas in buildings. And so they both end up getting captured in building energy. So I'm not going to go into too much detail, but I want to make the linkage that in some cases, so our task is to reduce these emissions to net zero emissions by the year 2050 in alignment with the state has a goal of reducing state emissions to zero by 2050. So local governments are supposed to align our work with that. But in some cases, in some of these sources of emissions, if, so we need to reduce emissions from vehicles, for instance, and we're also tasked with the average amount people drive producing, that those have, the co-benefit of improving water quality as well, right? So a lot of these are linked to other sources of pollution, right, as well. So while water quality may not be, at the forefront of greenhouse gas emissions reduction, I think there's some benefits to it that are tied to it. Okay, let's go to the next slide. All right, so I'll give you a little bit of background on resilience, a little bit of background on greenhouse gas emissions reduction, and then I want to talk a little bit more about this environmental justice topic and how we've been thinking about it for this one. So House Bill 1181 added some new definitions into state law. So they provided a definition for vulnerable populations and also for overburdened community. I will say these are the shortened definitions. There's actually the full text is a bit longer, and it does go into some examples for each in the law. So, but generally, vulnerable populations are population groups that are more likely to be at higher risk for poor health outcomes in response to environmental harms. And an overburdened community is a geographic area where vulnerable populations face combined multiple environmental harms and health impacts. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. So we had to keep those terms and that concept top of mind throughout this project and how we did our work. So part of that meant looking at available data and how it intersects with the climate data that we have. So on this slide, I just have one example of that. So on the left side of the screen is a copy of the state's environmental health disparities map. This map was created a handful of years ago by the Department of Health, and it combines socioeconomic and environmental health data. A darker purple indicates a more burdened community, and a lighter color indicates a less burdened community. We do have the city shaded out just because our planning area is only the unincorporated area, but cities have access to this information as well. And then on the right-hand side, this is a map showing one metric of air quality, which is fine particulate matter. And a darker green means worse air quality, and a lighter green means better air quality. And if you just look at these two maps side by side, there's quite a lot of overlap between the county's more burdened areas and where air quality is worse. So, this becomes important for things like transportation policies that we're working on, which are a key source of air pollution, where when we're writing them or we're implementing them, if we improve air quality where it's worse, we're also going to be improving the air quality in a community that's already overburdened. So there's a lot of linkages there between the environmental health and where there are additional burdens as well. So again, so this is one example of using available data to think about our work here. And if we go to the next slide, I mentioned earlier on that with our Environmental Justice Coalition, they helped us develop an equity lens, which was a tool that we used to review draft policies. And so the three overarching questions in that equity lens are up on this slide. And they really were there to help us think through the impacts of policies, who was being impacted by policies, and what we could do to reduce the impacts and enhance benefits of those policies. And so we thought through those questions with that group. And, based on the answers to those questions, we did some more revisions to draft policies based on using that lens as a way to review them. Okay. All right, I'm going to shift to what's coming out of all of this work and just talk about proposed policies. So we have quite a long draft policy list. It has 32 goals and over 100 policies on it. This slide, and it is a little tiny in this room, so I apologize. This slide shows the topic area of those 32 goals, just to give you like a at a glance overview of what's in them. But because it's hard to read, I'll just highlight some examples. So we've broken things out. We came up with 7 categories. So we have the health and well-being category, and it has goals and policies related to a just transition, advancing environmental justice, ensuring the most vulnerable communities don't bear disproportionate impacts, consultation with the Cowlitz Indian tribe, regional tribal governments, and culturally specific groups, food economies, agriculture and landscaping, housing, air quality, and outdoor recreation. We have a green jobs category that has a goal and some policies on economic development and job generation. An ecological stewardship category that has goals and policies related to trees, county plantings and green spaces, environmentally critical areas and open space, forestry, salmon, water resources, stormwater, public education on environmental topics. There's a transportation and land use category with policies related to reducing vehicle miles traveled, county vehicles, electric vehicles, resilience of our transportation system and resilient development. Building and energy relates to energy efficient buildings, clean, renewable, and diverse building energy options, emissions from county buildings and facilities, and green building and sustainable building practices. Waste management relates to waste reduction, composting, recycling, emissions from county purchases, using less and supporting maintenance, repair, and resale economy. And then we have a county governance category on sort of the administration of policy implementation and the resilience of county operations. A lot is a lot. Okay, one more slide. I'm almost there. I'm not going to go through every single policy. We would be here for hours. I highly recommend you can review them, offline, and I'm happy to answer questions at any time. But I did just pull out a few actual policies, or these are the goals. These are example goals that I thought might overlap with clean water. So we have one on protecting waters of the county through a stormwater management program that minimizes impacts in stormwater runoff. This is actually an existing comprehensive plan goal in the current comprehensive plan. So when we did have policies that were already relevant, rather than repeating ourselves, we said, great, we're going to label that. Sounds like a resilience policy. So that's one that already exists, which the Clean Water Department helps us implement. We have another goal to manage water resources sustainably to meet the needs of the public and ecosystems under changing climate conditions. And we have another goal to protect and plant more trees in rural and urban areas and equitably increase tree canopy cover through targeted planting and maintenance support. So hopefully that gives you a flavor of what you might find if you look at the policy list. Okay, so I'm just going to wrap up with like what's next in terms of where we are in this process. So just here's the timeline slide again. So we are getting ready for the adoption process. So we are actually did this briefing council this morning. So we're in the process of talking to the Planning Commission and County Council, making sure they're familiar with what's being recommended for this new climate chapter and the proposed policies in it. And eventually the Planning Commission and County Council, they're going to hold hearings on this proposed new climate chapter and all the policies within it. And members of the public can submit written comments or testify during hearings. And so if that's at all of interest to you, you are welcome to participate in that public process. I have a link on my last slide that takes you to our project webpage. I think the best way to find out when a hearing is happening is to be on our email list, because we will send out notifications to anyone on that list that says, hey, there's a hearing coming up, submit your comments. I will note, the adoption process, it is tied to this bigger comprehensive plan update project. So it's not going to happen until the rest of the pieces are ready to go. We are a little bit delayed with some other items. So we are getting all of our stuff. We are in the final steps of getting a complete climate chapter drafted with all these recommended policies. But we won't have those hearings until the rest of the comp plan is also ready to go.
So they adopt the whole comp plan.
They adopted all at once.
So much.
And they've got some other decisions on other things to make first before we can go through that hearing process. So if you just for the last slide, I'm going to stop talking thank you for listening. But the webpage link is there, but the QR code also takes you to the webpage for the project. And that is my contact information. So you're also welcome to reach out at any time if you have questions. All right, any other?
I had a few.
Owen,
I said Jenna a few in advance, but I won't ask all of them for the sake of time. So I had the opportunity to sit in on a couple of your meetings, and would you say that the council is generally supportive of this? That was my impression, at least for a couple of meetings I've sat in on. They seem to be supportive of the effort. And,
yeah, I do think generally the council has been supportive. I think they understand that this is a new requirement, right? So the county doesn't really have an option, and so I think they've been appreciative of the process we've used and all the public engagement, and that it really was very community driven in terms of what ended up in the proposal. Yeah, so it seems like that as of right now.
There was a reason for my question, which is if we wanted to draft a letter of support, I don't know if that's something that would be more weight in favor of this, or it was already on the track of likely being approved regardless.
I think we don't like to try to predict how the council will vote. Generally that's up to them. So I would encourage you, if you want to submit comments, to submit comments.
We haven't talked about it as a group yet, but it's something that.
Yeah, and then I would defer to Devin and Alice on your all's process for doing things like that.
Generally, the commission has been a really big help on submitting letters of support. They endorse our grant applications, and then during our rate study process last year, just reinforced to council how important it was to move forward. And so I imagine, the commission would either have some constructive feedback on policies or rewriting in support. And hopefully, if there are any comments for your team, I would be curious to hear if is still space for comments on the policies, or are they're done?
Well, we as staff, what's being proposed for adoption is what came out of our advisory group work. Okay. But council can make decisions, like they can change things up until once they vote, right? So if you have a suggestion, it is, you're welcome to share it. But at this point, right, staff isn't planning to incorporate changes because we put so much work through that process. But the planning commission and council, their job is to listen to the feedback, right? And if they think something's a really good idea, they can make that suggestion to incorporate it.
If we did want to do that, I will say there's a lot of material to go through, and it would be helpful to point us to what would be the latest and most pertinent documents to review if we were to provide any feedback, beyond just a letter of support. They have been wordsmithing, some of the, I'm not going to say this right, but maybe the elements that support the goals, and it seems like that's been being adopted. So maybe I didn't say that right. Look a little perplexed when I said that. So
wouldn't this be appropriate for we have a climate action subcommittee for this commission? Wouldn't it be appropriate for them
to hear about that?
To be,
you can't wait
looking at this in more detail.
Just wait until you get to that slide.
I'm teeing it up. So
Instigator and proponent.
I do want to clarify something though. Those requests or recommendations would be to council, not to staff at the time of adoption. Is that correct?
Right. So when planning commission and or council holds a hearing, any comments that come through get shared with them. So that, they're the ones who are reviewing and being asked to consider them. I mean, staff, we look at them as well because we field questions about them. But yes,
but at this time, the staff are done, and so any changes would only come at the request of the planning commission.
Right. That's who's going to be asked to consider them.
Yeah, we can talk about that. So, but the last one is you went through the several climate element goals, in your presentation that kind of correspond with the interest of our commission, and those are good ones, and there's some other ones as well. But implementation, I know you're trying to get to the finish line and get it's adopted, but where do you see yourself going with implementation? how could, you know, if the commission is interested, other aspects that maybe we could lend our support or capacity to, and how, what's your yardstick for measuring success?
Yeah, those are all really good questions. So,
But you only have a minute.
right, so the comprehensive plan, you know, while community planning, we're the main department who updates it. We work in really close collaboration with most departments at the county for like the relevant pieces of it. So, you know, anything in our comprehensive plan related to clean water, stormwater, right? We end up talking to Devin or someone on her team, right? They're the people who are reviewing those pieces and giving us feedback and things like that. So when it comes to implementation, similarly, you know, we're going to need to work really collaboratively at the county across departments, because this is a very broad, this is covering a lot of topics, right? And it does touch a lot of different county departments. So we will, you know, Devin is my go-to when I have questions, you know, so we'll be talking more, you know, and we have to be careful. We can't really get ahead of ourselves because we don't know ultimately what will be approved. You know, right now, these are proposals, right? And council hasn't voted on them, right? So they're not policy yet. So we don't want to, you know, we need to be consistent with council, right? And the policy direction and what they've adopted. So I would kind of defer, well, Devin would be who I work with,
Well,
you know.
we are implementing all, you know, everything.
Right.
I mean, there's a lot of alignment, is what I saw around county land acquisition, restoration, tree planting, stormwater management. We're doing things with environmental justice. So I definitely think that will be a big part of implementing this, along with others like public health, community development. What it's really, this is the guideline for all the work the county staff and the departments will be tasked with implementing over the next 20 years. So we are the implementers.
Yeah, and I guess one other thing I'll add is Devin and her team reviewed draft policies and gave feedback, right? Her team was checking that the consistency with the stormwater permit, right? You know, like we're trying to be consistent across the various requirements the county has, because wouldn't it be great, right, if we can meet multiple objectives with, you know, a single action, for instance.
Yeah. And we actually were coordinating on the urban tree canopy assessment. Jenna was a reviewer because, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's a tree canopy policy component, but the tree canopy mapping and data collection.
Right, we have a new requirement for another piece of the comp plan tied to trees.
So we were able to utilize that opportunity, which we should follow up on because we want to do a phase 2.
Yeah. Go ahead, please.
This is kind of, I know there's the 2050 goal, but what are the interim goals that, you know, you can get?
Oh, yes, I didn't speak to that. So, so we do have, we have a 5-year reporting requirement to the Department of Commerce. So we will have to share. So we're going to need to figure out metrics to share our progress. And for greenhouse gas emissions, part of that is, well, what are the emissions now compared to what they were? But metrics even on the resilience side, right? How do we know if we're being successful with like some of our stormwater policies, right? So we are going to need to figure out how to track that. And no, that. Yeah, so we do have some data sources that the state does collect some data, you know, so we do have some numbers for that. So and there's a few different ways to measure it, you know, but that's something that we can get updated data for over time. So that's something that actually has a data source tied to it. Not everything does.
Our roads department is responsible for maintaining that information. We have a whole traffic team. And then we work with the Regional Transportation Council and the Department of Transportation. So there's some requirements around regional transportation planning and making sure, because part of the comp plan is also, do we have enough roads to support the population? So all of that data is collected and managed through our transportation group here at the county in partnership with regional and state groups. So And a lot of that's driven and has linkages to the Federal Highway Administration. So all this is transferable even across many municipalities across the US are collecting regular vehicle miles traveled data.
Yeah.
Um,
And then I guess the one other piece I would add is, one of the things I talking with council about this morning is, we are, the 2050 target to get to net zero. We are, interested in setting incremental target, like 5-year targets. So things to aim for along the way. So you're not just aiming for the big goal with not really knowing how well you're doing along the way. So, we, are proposing to write in sort of 5-year incremental steps to aim for reducing greenhouse gas emissions, measure again, every 5 years.
So the scorecard, so to speak, you've got 5 years to develop quantifiable metrics to be able to report on annually,
So the,
quatra, annually, every 5 years. I mean,
Yeah,
like,
so
what is the
we-
frequency of
we're going
reporting?
to move faster because we're reporting every 5 years. So we need to
Okay.
report progress. So, I think part of it, we're going to need to phase implementation. It's too many policies for us to
Yeah, there were
implement
100
all at
this
once.
is
Yeah,
one
and
element. Yeah,
limited
there's
staff.
16 elements in the plan.
Right.
So like,
So,
okay.
right, so we need to be strategic. So, again, we kind of need to know what council ultimately adopts. But part of that is, I'll just go back to the clean water related policies, is I'm going to talk to Devin and her team and sort of ask for some input on how do we,
measure?
right, how do we measure, but also how do we strategize what to do first, right? Like, are there certain things we need to do to set us up to be able to do the other things? So we're going to need to think about the sequencing of implementation, and then also what are some ways we can measure, either with data we're already collecting, or is there a new thing we need to, start measuring?
And would that start like post adoption, like 2026, or I'm sure that right now you're trying to just get through
Right,
adoption.
that's where my head is.
Yeah.
But we should definitely talk,
Yeah.
Because I think if there's something you're thinking about, right? That
I would
could
say
be-
at this time, we've talked about performance measure development in the context of the rate study work group and delivering services. So we're still, there's some synergy there. And so you've planted a seed now that, as we're developing those performance measures, we should also be thinking about the nexus to the climate change.
I wonder, maybe 9 months from now, you came back and gave an update. I mean, if that'd be possible, but then everything will be adopted. You can kind of point us to, hey, look, these would be the really good things to focus on. I mean, you already did your presentation, but things maybe we could dig into more.
Okay. Alice will reach out to me when she thinks the time is right.
And also when you're ready to have that conversation too,
Yeah.
I'm sure when post implementation, probably want to catch your breath and start, have a transition period to start planning for that performance measure and reporting. I know there's a lot of thought work probably that still needs to, but we're happy to work alongside you with that. I think it's very exciting.
This is probably a question for someone maybe at the state level, so maybe for Devin rather than you, but given what we've seen with regard to the erosion of the greenhouse gas emission standards at the EPA level, not unlikely we're going to see the same thing happen with the Clean Water Act. And ultimately, it's not going to put us at odds with the feds in terms of getting funding for a lot of these initiatives that you're proposing.
Yeah, I can answer at least for the climate
Please,
work, and
yeah.
then feel free to expand. But for this climate work, it is all state law, right? So right now, I mean, that's our job as our team, is to implement state law. So, and so as of right now, that's what we're doing. And actions taken so far at the federal level could impact speed with which some things, happen, advancement of certain technology, things like that would be very helpful to implement some of these things. And it could impact the amount of funding, right? If to do some of these things, some federal funding could be an option. So it will have implications like that in terms of this climate work. But I will defer to Devin for more
I think the good thing about Washington State in the context of the Clean Water Act is Washington State has that state authority to still keep their water quality
They can
standards.
be more rigorous than the
Yeah.
federal if they choose.
And I would say that the state is more rigorous on the water quality side. As far as I'm not as well versed on the air quality side, we can have air quality standards that say we don't allow emissions over this level, but and that helps drive the market for vehicle technology development. I think what gets a little bit, if we're not having that federal backbone, just reinforcing how important it is, it's that federal policy that really helps drive more of the change in the consumer products. So when we're thinking about greenhouse gas emissions, it's not just vehicles, but also like electrifying of the equipment we use. Our people who are out in the field using like hedge clippers and things like that. And our fleet team was monitoring very closely some potential changes that would drive vehicle purchasing and equipment purchasing. And not an expert on that topic, but my understanding is that those big federal drivers have rolled back a little bit. So I'm not sure where Washington State has landed in comparison to federal law, though, on electrification of equipment. Allison.
Hi, I was just curious. I know one thing we've talked about up at King County is when employers encourage more teleworking, there's often less cars on the road, which often leads to less emissions. Is that something that is being tracked at all? I know obviously carbon emissions was a big one. Is that something, I don't know how that would be couched as, like employers encouraging teleworking? Is that something that's being tracked?
I could try and take that one, Devin. We have been working on a hybrid policy, and different organizations say different things, but more teleworking obviously is less wear and tear on the roads and less trip commutes. We haven't quite made that connection yet. And the challenge we have, because Clean Water is part of the larger Public Works organization, we have many operations crews that have to do their work in person or customer facing portals. So we have such a large breadth of employees. Stating those things can be challenging. And so we have to be very careful about how it's rolled out and implemented. And teleworking is often based on performance. And I mean, I'm teleworking now, but we're actually almost seeing a reverse trend I can share where more and more people actually want to come in at least part-time. And that's another thing we're trying to do. And Devin's been working on that as she grows her team, is how do we change our space accommodation to share, have these collaborative meetings? So it is a work in process, and I think it will be more informed after the comprehensive plan. I know that's a complex answer.
Aren't there commuter surveys and things like that?
Yeah,
that
I
help
was going
track?
to add that in Washington State, large employers, which this is not my area of expertise, I think it's if it's over 100 employees, yeah, have to have a commute trip reduction program. So the county's an example of that,
We
where
have
there's,
one.
incentive to not drive in your car by yourself to get to and from work. So that is, that's happening in the county already. I believe the City of Vancouver runs that, sort of manages that program for across the county. And so there are incentives for that. We do actually have a draft policy that also talks about it. There are other ways to figure out how to incentivize remote work, but also to the point of where it makes sense, because we recognize that that doesn't make sense for everybody. Not all jobs can work remotely, things like that. And so also pairing that with, other incentives to, whether it's carpooling, public transit, riding your bike, walking, other ways to promote, driving a little less. So,
And previous employers, like at Department of Ecology, they had competitions around who could ride their bike the most to work and their incentives. Or I worked for the city of Seattle, and everyone got a free bus pass, and that really helped incentivize alternative forms of transportation. I think it'd be awesome. And there's carpool benefits as well. I know we have set aside carpool parking here at the county, so there's probably a lot of opportunity.
I get a free bus pass through the county.
You
I,
do?
like,
How do you get a free bus pass?
I'll talk.
Okay.
You can too.
Dang, I need to take advantage of that. Free, I'm writing that. Free bus pass.
There's look in the lunchroom.
Okay, I need to pay attention to the
Follow
signs.
the breadcrumbs.
I have a question. I keep,
Okay, last question.
this is a tough one probably too, and I'm the one asking it. I've been following a little bit about this like resource land study. I don't know what they're calling it. Can you tell us a little bit about what the heck that thing is and why it's happening or what they're trying to seek out to answer?
Yes, so this ties to another aspect of our comprehensive plan update. So, well, this climate work is really focused on policies in the comprehensive plan. One of the other big things that happen during our comprehensive plan updates is we revise our essentially land use and zoning maps, right? And so depending on how familiar you are with zoning, that determines what you are allowed to do where, right? What uses are allowed. And we do this, we have to collaborate with all of the cities because sometimes the boundary of what's an urban area might change also as part of this update process. So there are the cities of Ridgefield and La Center would like to consider potentially bringing in some land into their urban area that is currently designated agriculture land.
Okay.
And there are requirements under the Growth Management Act that you cannot de-designate agriculture land unless you've done, I'm gonna get the
A
word
study.
wrong, like an area-wide study.
Got it.
So because those cities have expressed interest in doing that, we now need to do that study, in order to be able to move forward. So that study is underway, and we will see what the results are. But it's essentially looking at the different criteria of what should be designated agriculture land.
Because we have to retain a certain quantity, is that correct, of open space or agricultural land to be in compliance?
There isn't necessarily a certain quantity, but there's criteria that need to be considered for defining like what is agricultural
Got it.
land, and that has to be protected. And it's designed to protect agricultural land of long-term commercial significance.
And is it only ag land they're looking at, or are they looking at like mineral land, potential land?
The study, so there were some other things on the table, but what's actually moving forward is just looking at agricultural resource land. So we are not at this time looking at forest or mineral resource lands.
Okay.
I
I've been
think
tracking that.
The issue was whether that can be done in a timely manner to correspond with your due dates.
Yes.
Is that going to happen in a timely manner?
It is causing some delays.
Yeah.
It does not look like we are going to meet the due date at the end of the year. So we are going to slide into next year because we need to meet that requirement in order to before we can finish the project.
Right.
So complex.
It is very complicated.
Very complex and all that you have to balance. I really appreciate it. And just out of curiosity, how big is your team that's working on the comp plan? I've been trying to, we're all a little lean and struggling from that perspective.
Yeah.
So how many
So
people?
community planning, we are 11 people total. We have a director, a manager, 2 admin staff, and the rest are planners.
Okay.
Some of us are land use planners and some of us are transportation planners.
So approximately 5 or 6 of you, not management, not admin.
So there are 9 of us, including our director and manager, because they are also working nonstop because we need all hands on deck.
Wow. Well,
Yeah.
thank you. I
Yeah.
hope you guys are able to get through the finish line. It's very exciting.
Well, thank you.
It's a lot of work. And if you've seen the news lately too, I know there's discussions starting to happen between our council and the city around annexations and UGAs, and that's something that we've already, we're watching. I don't know if you have any insight on when those decisions get made, or it's okay if you don't.
Yeah, I mean, again, not my area of expertise, but generally speaking, the city's annexation plans are a part of our comp plan. But the timing, like the cities initiate it's on the cities to initiate an actual annexation process. So there's some conversation, yeah, that's restarted recently, but I don't think
Was just
there's any
curious
more
if you had the
details.
Scoop.
No,
Yeah.
I do not
No
know
worries.
anything more than you.
Thank you so much, Jenna. It's been great. I want a round of
Yeah,
applause.
Well, thank you all for having me.
So much.
Thank you
And you're
so
welcome to
much,
stick
Jenna.
around or
I
go
sent you
home.
an email to connect.
Great, sounds
tomorrow.
good.
Okay,
Yeah, you should
bye.
be present.
All
You
right.
probably presented a million times this year, I'm assuming.
I do this a lot, but appreciate it, and thanks for all your questions. And I will probably sneak out, but enjoy
Yes,
the rest of your meeting.
yes, thank you. Hope your work session went well with council.
Ted, I was hoping we could pick something out of order. Because we only have the 5 people here. We only have a quorum right now. So if we could move up and do the grant application support letters, because that needs, votes of approval, I would really appreciate that.
Sure. So let's take up the item 4D, approval of 3 grant application letters of support. Kevin, do you want to give us a quick overview on these 3 letters?
Sure, I'm happy to do that. So, as you're all familiar, we continue to apply to Department of Ecology for funding to implement projects. This year, we're planning to submit 3 applications. 2 of them, the Northeast Hazeldale Ave 78 to Cougar Creek, and the Northeast 99th Street I-5 to East of Highway 99, we need better project names. Those are both Stormwater Financial Assistance Program grants. And then the third is, it's a new grant program. It's our community-based public-private partnership program. We have a grant right now to develop the program, and we'll be seeking funding to implement the program. And that's our new program that we're building to support bioretention facility maintenance. We currently have 600 bioretention facilities that are in some need of repair or refurbishment. And so this second phase grant application that we're asking for your support today is to begin the implementation of those repairs of the facilities. So grant applications are due, I believe, September 3rd. So we're still about a month away. But we do appreciate your continued support for these projects. And I'm happy to take any other questions if you have them. Alice also included some short project descriptions on these projects. I will say that there were some questions about how we prioritize projects and why and how we prioritize funding. So the 2 Stormwater Financial Assistance Program projects that we're submitting for are identified in our capital plan. So we technically have to implement these to be in compliance with our stormwater permit. And if we do not apply for grant funding, we ultimately end up paying for constructions of these projects ourselves. So we're really excited for the potential to get grant funding, because that just helps us continue to keep our rates low and repurpose that money elsewhere if necessary.
Are there any questions of Devin? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve the letters of support for the 3 grants that were outlined.
So moved.
Have a second?
I'll second.
Ellison seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Hi.
Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
Good projects.
Very excited. I forgot to mention that these final projects on Highway 99, we've been focusing on this area for many years, and these are historically none of Highway 99 was treated for stormwater, and this will conclude all of the projects on Highway 99. So the whole stretch will now have water quality treatments. We're very excited.
And Ted, I'll, DocuSign them to you.
I'm sorry.
I'll send them to you. DocuSign.
Sure. Okay.
Kevin, like, when do we know how much they'll grant toward the grant?
Yeah, so we usually hear back from Department of Ecology so the process is we apply usually in September, October, and then at the end of January, we are then put on a draft offer list, which is essentially Ecology's recommendation to Washington State Legislature. it means that we've scored enough points for them to endorse the project. And then the final offer list doesn't come out until June. So between that time, our legislators are essentially making a decision around what to fund, how much money's in the budget to fund these projects. So although we hear congrats, you're on the draft list in January, technically there is no guarantee we have those monies until June. So we will know, around this time next year, essentially, and be starting a negotiation process. I will say one of the things that, for the 2 stormwater financial assistance program projects, those 2 projects we're only able to receive if the county's in compliance with GMA. So we just have to be in compliance at the time of signature. So we continue to apply, and right now we're in compliance. We don't know what will happen. And feel optimistic that if we're offered these next June, would be in a good position.
Yeah. And has the county done any other performance-based contracting work, like for the CBP3 to?
No, this is our first time. So the first phase grant is to start to focus on working with our legal department and our procurement department to look at different procurement mechanisms for a performance-based contract. And some of the outcomes of that will be a draft contract template, and then we'll be establishing the payment terms, the performance measures that need to be reported on. So all of the first phase will be scoping that. And the goal is to come out of that with a contract that we can ultimately sign in phase 2 to start the work. There are other, Allison just mentioned, I don't know if Allison, you want to speak to what King County is doing, but there are 6 total recipients of the CBP3 funding. King County is one of them. Allison, are you able to share?
Yeah, I can quickly just share that. So King County also was awarded, I think it's about $500,000 for our community-based public-private partnership program. And ours is largely trying to figure out how to simplify this. So through our stormwater permit, we have to do certain projects that meet what are called SMED, or stormwater management for existing development points. And we're trying to figure out how we can hire a contractor to help us reach all of our points that we need for the permit doing stormwater retrofit projects. So it's honestly right now, kind of like Devin talked about, it's a lot of just figuring out how to do this performance-based contracting process within our own jurisdiction and figure out if it's hopefully feasible. I think there's a lot of legal loopholes that we have to figure out that we can jump through in contracting and procurement processes. But as I mentioned in the chat, I think we're all encouraged that there's several jurisdictions throughout Western Washington that are all kind of figuring this out together. And so we have this great community-based learning and meeting regularly to share lessons learned and what's going on. So I'm excited to learn from Clark County and what's going on down here and share vice versa.
It's really awesome, actually. So Ecology has had this learning network where they've been teaching us about this program, and they hired a consultant to facilitate all the municipalities come together to do shared learning. And then Ecology paid for a consultant team to help us write our applications. And then we were offered this funding to do the program development without any match requirements. So this new framework for performance-based contracting is really being encouraged by Washington State. It hasn't been done a ton yet. So what Allison said, we'll be working with King County and others to figure out all of the legalese, but essentially what it gets us is that our contractors don't get paid until after they construct something and demonstrate it works. So it ultimately helps us reduce paying for and ending up, funding and funding infrastructure projects that at the end aren't what we aren't performing as we expected. So they have this incentive to make sure the vegetation's established. And like Allison said, SMED is our capital plan. So there are models where you can hand over your 5-year capital plan worth X of millions of dollars and say, go implement all these projects. And then the contractor doesn't get paid until they do it. So I don't know if that's the scale that King County is working towards if you're trying to implement your whole capital plan, but there are, like, the city of Seattle has a very large program with millions of dollars, and it does require, the challenging part is it requires coordination with firms and banks that have a lot of money who are willing, they're essentially betting on their own success and taking on that financial risk, because if ultimately what they construct doesn't meet our performance requirements, then they just don't get paid. But it's a really reduces our risk and liabilities and shifts it to the private sector.
One of the lessons learned, Core kind of learned the hard way, going back to 2002 when we started doing performance contracting for dredging, was that we never incorporated. We had this community of practice, and it was this insulated, inward-looking organization of the Corps and maybe 2 other federal agencies. And we never went to the contractors themselves to look for how they would do it or how they would be measured. And so when we finally partnered with AGC, the Association of General Contractors, we started finding more, I think, balanced ways of creating and spreading risk, so it isn't all government and getting the benefit and the contractor getting all the risk. And that's the kind of seesaw that you're going to play, and the response you'll get to putting a contract on the street is if it's too imbalanced, you'll get no bids.
No bids, yeah.
And so I think that partnering early with the contractor side could be really beneficial. And I don't know how you create such a group, or if the Department of Economic Development has such a group, or the trade associations, but that would be a really smart thing to try.
I just wrote that down. I think I would love to follow up and talk a little bit more about that.
Yep.
Jenny?
And Devin, I could probably introduce you to some people at PNCWA, but it sounds a lot like alternative delivery. And whenever you're shifting risk to someone else, they put a price on the risk, and so the cost goes up. The other thing is, it seems really interesting that people would be doing this work and not paid for maybe several years. So it's just working through these procurements and requirements for subcontractors sounds really interesting.
Yeah, I would say we're at the we're at the learning phase right now. And so that was just approved by council yesterday. And very excited. We'll be working very closely internally, as well as with other jurisdictions, because I don't think there's like Allison hit the nail on the head. Like, we're all trying to figure this out, and it sounds like you may have some resources to point us to.
On go down of the project.
I like it. Okay, what you want to share? What you just put in the chat, Allison?
Yeah, I just want to add, like to Jenny's point, it's very dependent on different contracting types, right? But oftentimes the contractors can be paid a percentage up front, or they can be paid a percentage at milestones. But yes, I know our procurement team raised red flags. They're like, we're never going to wait to pay a contractor until like 5 years down the road when they meet performance goals. So yes, there's often a staging of payment pricing terms throughout the contract.
And we'll be establishing those through that part of the scope of work, because it'll be interesting to see if we can gain that internal buy-in too. There is a chance that part of this is to get the no-go, or we're hoping that we can utilize this framework, but if at the end of the day it isn't a good framework for Clark County, then we don't know that yet.
Yep.
There's a history of this. In the bidding process for major public works contract, the GCCM model, which is General Contractor Construction Manager, and the design build alternatives that have been around now for probably 20 years, have proven to be fairly successful. And it's a risk-shifting arrangement between the contractor and the public owner. But it's proven to be pretty successful, and it's probably translated to what you're trying to accomplish here. So
Right.
GCCM and design build, called alternative bidding in the state of Washington.
Okay.
Okay, we move on here.
Yeah, we only have about a half an hour left. I want to honor everyone's time, so quite a bit to get through.
Okay, our next topic is the joint meeting of the Clean Water Commission and the Urban Forestry Commission. It was held last month. How do we want to handle the debrief? Want to have a general discussion?
Yeah,
or-
just thoughts on how you think it went, what you learned, how you're feeling about the urban tree canopy assessment report, if you had a chance to take a look at it, just general. Yeah, insights on
Yeah,
what do you think?
I'll start just, saying, hey, it's good to get into somebody else's organization to find out, how they goal set, what they do, how they represent. I think, Devin and I discussed a little bit offline about just how they take a part of, their attachment forestry wise is neighborhood level.
Mhm.
We have kind of a watershed-ish mechanism to potentially attach to and take, more direct ownership of and reporting to. And I don't know if that would be a useful construct for us to use, or if there's other models for us to, fall against and say, because the commission changes over so frequently, there's every year you get new blood in, and they may be from a different watershed, and so this watershed where you started moving something in gets kind of laid in fallow, and then this one gets lit up, and you're constantly dimming and raising light levels. So I don't know. It's just something that I think if folks have interest in trying to take that further for more direct commissioner engagement of where you belong and what you represent or why you're here, or any of those steps, I think this meeting kind of provoked that for me at least. And so be interested in hearing anybody else's thoughts about that, if that's got any merit.
Do you mean when they're talking about their community engagement, or what do you mean when they were talking about? the
Yeah,
neighborhood?
like they report on a neighborhood of, hey, I've done X, Y, and Z. I've planted so many trees. I've watered this many in this neighborhood. So they're
Yeah.
directly attached to some forestry cause, with their own sweat equity, I guess, and it
Well, like you are with Waccamaw
yeah,
watershed.
could be, yeah. But that doesn't have to be the only way, and I think I'm trying to figure, are there other ways to
Well, I
have
noticed
more
that
direct attachment
on
to
our
it?
list, I think it has update from commissioner on work in the community. So is that directly from what they were doing? Like, are we borrowing from there?
I think we liked that. I think
Yeah.
what Glenn's getting at is each of the urban forestry commissioners is actually assigned to a neighborhood.
Oh,
And so they go to these neighborhood association meetings and they liaise. And I was like, that's really neat, because I've heard you all talking about HOA engagement, but at this time, no one's assigned to anything. And so I thought it was an interesting model because one, it further engaged and deployed you all, I would say, and also provides some geographic boundary and ownership over an area. And so that was something I was like, I want to learn more about that. And we're debriefing with Charles just to learn more about how he's set that up to equip people to be successful with the information and establishing those relationships. And I think if it's something commissioners are interested in, some of that work is discussions happening in community engagement, but how can we formalize it and create that structure? I really liked hearing about that at the commission meeting.
One of the challenges is you have so many neighborhood associations. So if we were to do something like that here, it would be, we'd each have multiple neighborhood associations to deal with, but it's an intriguing idea. So
Yeah, I think that's why I think assigning a watershed or
A bigger
splitting it up
geography
into
where you
quadrants,
could pick
you
and
know.
choose, kind of like, you like conservation district related work, that's that landscaping part of you is just drawn right into, that. And every commissioner could have some different attachment, but if there's a geography, I'll be honest, I'm watching the midterm resignations, and I'm quite honest, I'm a little bit miffed by it. you know, I know everybody's got a life. We all signed up to kind of volunteer some amount of time and energy into a commission. And I'm looking for other ways for retentive, you know, tools that create more attachment to us rather than just, well, I chuck a resume in, I play as long as I want, and then I get DD mile out of here when I'm tired of it or something. You know, it's I don't know. I'm being blunt.
So
You know, which I'm not
that's
being.
time for another discussion we need, which we do need to let people go. I think it's worth having. In terms of the recommendation for scales, I mean, it was a little hard to participate remotely, but you know, first of all, I thought that what you did or the county did, the report was excellent. I mean, that was, I had a chance to look at it. I wasn't even aware that the city had done one until we met, and I say, oh, I should see what the city did. But in terms of scale, you know, once neighborhood, right? I think I see the county one is watershed based, you know, which I think and breathe in watersheds. So I think there's a way to marry up the two scales so they would complement each other. And I do like whether it's neighborhood associations or homeowners associations, that could be a way, but remember there's going to be lands that don't fall within those entities that we would want to reach out to so they understand the value of maintaining native vegetation that provides shading and canopy for our aquatic environments, whether it's streams or groundwater defended ecosystems or lakes or ponds. So we're going to need to think about how we want to work and convey that topic very much at a watershed base. But I like the idea, Glenn and Devin, in terms of some type of ownership maybe that we have in terms of different groups that we want to at least initially reach out to. And in fact, Eric Lambert and we set up a meeting with my HOA
Okay.
on the 18th of this month. It took 6 months to do, but and that was a learning experience because they all operate very differently and how you and who you communicate with. But I hope we can learn from that and as others and see how we want to plan it more broadly.
Yeah, we have 3 inspectors assigned to all the HOAs, and they have a geographic split too. So one of the things I'm interested in is how we can utilize those relationships as well, since they're going out to those HOAs annually. Sometimes they have one-on-one meetings with those HOAs. I think in all my lesson was like, how can we, you know, learn from Vancouver, what they're doing, and be responsive to what we're hearing requested from you so that we can make that more strong connection. And on the retention side of things, I was brainstorming with Glenn yesterday. We went to Thai food, and what I realized that we do every year is we set commission-wide goals, but we haven't sat down with each commissioner and asked, like, what are your goals for your term? And I think that that could be really important for us to understand, but also to, you know, you as individuals have some key things that you want to be working on and achieving outside of like the work groups, because as we all know, getting those work groups together, getting any adults together, it takes like it takes so
Don't even try with children.
I have to schedule lunch with friends like a month in advance or more. So,
but Glenn, I appreciate you going blunt. I mean, I do think whether in some form, whether it's individually, you know, with you, Devin, or as a group, we need to talk about, you know, what do we want this commission to be? What do we want to get out of it? You know, what do we want to contribute? I think we all have different thoughts on that.
Yeah, when we're in touch with the people around us, the other stakeholders where we live and recreate with these other watershed, recreators, they all have thoughts, and being in touch with that and being able to use that to help goal shape, if nothing else, as a commission, I think
yes,
it's more tangible evidence and it's more interactive with somebody besides, ourselves and what we think, striving in our own little pockets.
Well, and even, I mean, being now 6 or 7 months in and losing track, maybe it's 8 months. But you know, I interact with you through the meetings. We've never had a meeting to get to know each other. I mean, we jump in and we have the discussions, and they're good discussions. But I've never had a chance to get to know you individually, and that's part on me too. I think, hey, let's go have lunch or something like that. But I think that would be helpful, especially for new commissioners, to get to know how each of us think, how we would sort of work, rather than just jumping right into the work.
We've had some quality car time.
We've had some quality time, and I've enjoyed that quality time
Awesome.
too.
And I like that idea because whenever we get a new staff person, I challenge them to meet with everyone on the team for at least 30 minutes. And that I give them like 6 months to do it. So maybe that's
good.
something we could do with the commissioners. Allison?
Maybe I'm the minority here, but I just want to emphasize that I think commissioners that join early in their professional career versus later in their professional career have different levels of time availability. And so just recognizing that there might be a passion for people to do all these things, but the availability of certain commissioners, i.e. myself, might not be the same time availability that others have just with young families and whatnot. So I just want to say that although a lack of presence and maybe commitment for extracurriculars might not be as pertinent for some of us, it doesn't mean that it's not a lack of enthusiasm. And I don't know why Alejandra dropped off, but I hope that we could also share some empathy that maybe it was a very, unsubstantiated reason that is out of our control. So just want to give respect for that.
There are definitely other things playing into her decision to leave. Anything else on the urban forestry meeting? There's probably a lot we could continue to talk about.
We do need to, I mean, if there's ideas in terms of next steps, I think maybe we don't have time now, but it would be good to share via email or something like that. And Glenn, in terms of having us meet as commissioners, and Allison, I completely appreciate what you said. I know everybody can give what they can give, right, in terms of time. And that's okay, that's okay. But maybe there's something we can do to kind of, I'd like to understand kind of where you guys are coming from, what your expectations are. I'm always happy to share them.
Yeah, I think we lose diversity if we only get people in who have the time to get to know each other for, on their off time and stuff. We lose, and that's a big loss, I think.
Yeah. Anyway, that was a mouthful, sorry.
No, I wrote this down too, and I'm I almost wonder, it's hard if we want to have like a separate retreat on setting individual goals, retention strategies, how we can, as well as setting this framework for whether or not it's geographic delineation, but continuing to work towards emulating the city of Vancouver's model. I thought that was a really great opportunity.
Would encourage everybody to be thinking about this, and this is something that we can put into the 2026 plan for, because of course, it's the annual already, we'll only have 2 meetings left at the end of the year.
That's wild.
So we can be thinking about, the December meeting will be a lot on, end of the year, looking back as well as looking forward, and coming up with some goals and priorities. And so I would encourage commissioners, please shoot me an email, let me know that this is, something that on this topics, and then I can accumulate these and then disseminate it out so that we have it and that everybody can then have the information and can move forward with it, so that, if you have it, that way we can start thinking about it.
I would like to see us get back up to a full commission again and turn this into a 2026 project.
Mhm.
So, because, we keep losing people and we never get back to full strength again. And I think having everyone on board and move forward with some of the ideas, John, and you Glenn, that you brought up, I think we need everyone. We need a full commission rather than a partial commission. Which raises the question, we do have a vacancy right now. I know it's further on.
Two.
We have two,
Two.
I know, but we have one that we could fill right now. And I made a recommendation to this body, and I think we ought to at least discuss it because we have a vacant position we could fill right now if we chose to do so. And we have a person that I suggested, doesn't mean that the commission would necessarily agree with my suggestion, but I think it's worthy of at least a brief discussion at today's meeting.
Can I ask, for past nominees, is that what the process has been, that you've talked about that among the commissioners? And okay, I just didn't know.
Yeah, we had a major recruitment, which I think you were part of, John. We had a number of qualified people, and we filled those positions, but we still had people that we thought met our criteria and our standards. I suggested David DeCrease, I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly, as someone that would provide a different perspective to this commission from the aspect of someone who works in the field, literally in the field, not professionally, but in the field, and who showed significant interest and attended a couple of our meetings virtually and in person. I don't know if his interest is still there or not, but I like the idea that someone would go out of their way, even though they were not selected, to continue to engage with the commission even afterwards. And so I brought his name up as someone that could possibly fill that one vacancy we have right now.
And if, I guess, when we had vacancies in the past, we just added people to our recruitment. So that's one option. I do believe the bylaws technically state we're supposed to have somebody from our available, if we have available eligible applicants that we want to appoint, we could do that. I think this commission, though, has a choice. If you want to stick with that, let's use who we have on file, appoint from there for these midterm vacancies, or continue to keep those spots open for our annual recruitment. Because right now we have recruitment open, and that's for the 3 people who are up this year, but then we could also fill the 2 vacancies and start 2026 with, filling them for 2026 rather than bringing them on right now. But I do think in the past, Alice, you've kept all the applicants on file.
It's on file for a year.
Okay, so he's technically in the pool to be considered.
So you've had others that you weren't able to select, but they were interested, so like you said, they're in the pool
And qualified.
We interviewed like 10
and
last year.
qualified.
10 or
So,
11.
sorry that I'm kind of trying to figure out the process here. So I've reviewed David. I mean, the resume looks great. I love people that bring a diversity of perspectives to the team. I think that's real important. My only question is more of a process one. Do you want to do it when you're looking at multiple applicants, to fill that? Or, and is it the urgency that we need to fill, granted we have 2 vacancies now, but that we need to fill right now? Or can we wait till we have a greater pool and then you're selecting from that pool rather than just the one?
I would look to the commission really to make a recommendation. I think my preference is always let's do it all at once and look at the full pool. I think that way we have a full, we're selecting essentially 5 people.
Then you can onboard everybody at the same time.
Yeah, I think so. And we just don't know who we're going to get, or if you have people that you want to send the recruitment to. And that way we're kind of giving ourselves more options as a commission. I think that's the pathway that I've been recommending, but I'm also hearing our chair say, hey, we have a great person, let's appoint him, and that would be a decision of the commission.
Part of this is, there have been a couple of instances where we've been right on the fringe of a forum to do commission business, which is, it's like, okay, why do we exist? One of those is to try and support Clean Water Division and the work they're doing, the great work they're doing, and approving grants and writing letters of recommendation, those kinds of things. And I'm of the opinion it's probably more convenient to us to wait for the full cycle. But that's kind of predicated on, can we consistently get, the turnout? Um,
Well, I'd point out that we have 3 people whose terms expire December 31st. And at this point, I don't know if we know whether the incumbents intend to reapply or not. I'm one of them. It would be helpful for the next few months if we had some idea if we're gonna have 3 more vacancies, come the end of the year.
We will know as of August 25th of whether or not our incumbents put in their
Is
applications.
that the drop dead date?
Yes,
So that's
Ted,
another
Emily, and Tracy.
yeah.
That's soon.
Wink, wink.
Just putting it out there. And if you need to know, the press release is in your packet. I'll be more than happy to email out again.
And I think we're looking for people to help with the interviews as well. So John, Glenn, since you're not up, Allison as well, you're welcome. You know, we would
Sure.
be looking for panelists.
I'll be gone for a month, just realized, so.
Which month is it?
September 17th to October 18th,
Okay,
so.
great.
If that interferes, I don't know.
I think we're still finalizing our schedule. I know we'll be screening applicants the last week of August and then working from there. So if we're able to get them in before you go, fantastic. I think we like to have them appointed
As soon as possible.
Before the December meeting.
Yeah, so that they can
For-
join us.
My preference is to have a look at a pool of candidates, but I also appreciate, you know, if we feel that in the next 3 or 4 months that we really need to have another person here because, you know, somebody may miss a meeting, we don't have a forum. I appreciate that too. So I'm flip-flopping, I'm sorry, but my preference is that I always like to have a pool of candidates to kind of look at.
We're
and I-
currently only 2 people down, so be able to get a quorum.
I think Emily, you know, her situation is unique. She gave us an advance warning. She's at a professional conference. I think what's more difficult is the last minute I can't make it. And we've had a few of those experiences, but I want to thank everyone who is consistently showing up and communicating well in advance around your absences. It's really helpful for our planning. Making sure we have a quorum.
I don't think we have to be draconian about it, but most boards and commissions that I've served on have a unexcused absence mandate. Most of it is 3 unexcused absences. Could lead to removal from the body.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily advocate that we adopt something like that, but there should be some understanding with memberships that they arrive that they need to come to these meetings either virtually or in person. And you know, if someone's missing meeting after meeting after meeting, I think we need to consider that as a commission.
I think so too.
I agree.
I agree. And I don't know, I think there's something in the bylaws around expectations for attendance, but I think the hard part is, you know, defining what an excused absence is. Like if I cancel a doctor's appointment within 24 hours, I have to pay for that doctor's appointment, you know, it's like $100. So I think it's really helpful for us to have an advance notification. Because that way too, if we don't have a quorum, or do we need to postpone it? So that's probably something to discuss is what if your people aren't going to make it, what is our expectation for that advance warning? Unless there's an emergency, right? Like things happen. And I think we can make some exceptions to that.
One of the things that I'm going to be working on, and I didn't have any takers earlier in the year, but I'm going to offer it one last time. If there's anybody who would like to participate and be on the bylaws work group, let me know, because that's something that I'm going to be working on, hopefully to either have ready for you to approve in October and or for sure by December. So every 2 years it's in the bylaws to do an update and review. So if you are interested, let me know. If not, I'm just gonna move forward and take a lot of the input that you've had, and I can send out the information throughout before it becomes, so we get the feedback.
I have some ideas, so.
Pardon?
Yeah. Is this
It-
an update year?
Yes, it is.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's an update year.
We should probably start circulating or form that subcommittee. I heard you
so
mention you have
that's-
some
yeah,
ideas.
Because if not, I was just some years I just do it because nobody else will do
I've
it.
put a few feelers out. See what
Fantastic.
people think.
Anybody else want to help? If
Oh,
not,
yeah, I'll-
You too? Okay.
I've got my fingers in too many others.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, glad you saw what I said a while back. So.
And I think also, we can have a chance for everyone to review and provide any input too.
Sure.
I don't know if that's something we want to bring to October meeting. Or
That's the plan.
But
try that
I
final.
don't know if we had closure on David's application though, or resume. I mean, again, I think my preference is look at a greater pool of candidates, but encourage David to hang in there and please apply. I think he'll compete very well. And again, he'll bring a lot of interesting perspectives that we would benefit from.
Anyone else? I guess we could do a quick around the table. Wait versus a point now.
I think wait and do it all at once. You know, there's 2 more meetings basically.
Wait. Just wait. Can we wait? You okay with that, Ted?
Well,
I'm just asking for discussion. I threw it out. And I'm just looking for
well, and we
discussion.
can potentially have the orientation in the last quarter of 25 so that the new people can hit the road run.
I do not have time for that. I'm so sorry. I'd say January 26th. If that's okay. I'm so sorry.
Well, then we're gonna be having some new people coming in the second half of the year.
January.
Mm,
We can talk about
Okay.
this offline.
all right. Work group updates, climate change.
Speed dating. Speed dating updates. If I talk about our brief conversation with Don, and then I can.
Oh,
Don Steinke is on community engagement, the climate group, the community engagement group. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he's a CAG guy. He's, I've known him for a long time. So we had a meeting with him to find out what did he feel about the process. We're just curious what he thought about the process of the developing the plan. He was really saying how important he feels like reducing the miles driven is.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, of course, he wanted it stronger, even probably than it ended up being that. Anyways, yeah, he was just really emphasizing reduction of the miles driven is what I felt like he was. Yeah.
And then we, Casey and I talked about a few things. I'll just real briefly. So I do think it could be a value to write a letter of support for what the county's doing for their climate. I'm very impressed with what they're doing. I think it's a little late in the game to make substantial changes in terms of recommendations on changes. I think a letter of support would be better, but that's just what I'm throwing out to the group. Devin set up a meeting with Jeff, and I'm not going to say his last name, right? Schnabel, thank you. Next week, because I had, I was curious. I'll just put it that curious in terms of the how the county incorporates climate change into their capital project prioritization. It's pretty clear in terms of the state application process. Climate resiliency is in there, and I have an email that's ready to go to you and to Tracy and to Alice, because I've gone through all the documents.
Oh, wow.
I know.
Impressive.
I did it at night. But again, a good perspective of what they do, what their selection process is, and if there's anything that maybe they'll need to incorporate with climate change. So that's another thing we're pursuing. Another one is we're being able to integrate climate change into non-point source symposium. So that's good, at least as it stands right now. And then, Jason, you had the idea in terms of kind of native vegetation, green landscaping for businesses and for homes. And I don't know if you want to touch upon that. You give me a look. This is the book. So,
Yeah, you mean beyond what the
Yeah.
Backyard Habitat program already does?
yeah,
Well, I mean, and I sent around the thing, I think that you commented on it, about the BBC had the article about the lawn to habitat, lawn to meadow program that was really cool.
Yeah.
And I sent that article to Alice and asked her to forward it on to Eric. Just because I thought that if he's already working with people on their lawns, then that would be a good, like this is the higher level that you could go to instead of just maybe like adding yarrow and clover into your lawn or something, anyways, the Pennsylvania's doing that, and I thought that was a really excellent program.
We probably at some point need to revisit the climate change subcommittee with Alejandra leaving. I'm not trying to throw anybody on the bus, but Rudy really hasn't participated.
It's super busy. Yeah.
So
So-
Tracy and I, we definitely, we talked about one point, maybe combine it with an all point source committee. That's something we can look at, but it would be nice to get some other perspectives in the subcommittee. So,
Yeah, I mean, they're so intertwined.
yes,
It's not a
so
point.
that's it with that one. I know that was more than a minute, so.
One quick
So-
question. Have you guys looked at anything in Vancouver yet? City of Vancouver, as far as their climate planning and work that they've done?
Climate action.
No,
Yeah.
no, not yet.
Had a really good discussion with them this week. And I'm reviewing the climate action planning, that climate element to the comp plan for Camus's 2045 plan.
Oh, great.
Nice.
And so, my walkabout, I kind of stumbled onto Vancouver. They've been chipping away at it a while. They've got
Please
some
send us some links.
very meaningful stuff. Sure. Be glad to do that. And I'll share with you some of my thoughts offline since we're kind of time constrained, but I'll
Sounds
give you
like
some other
another
thoughts.
person, great person to have.
Yeah,
on
you
our
want to
subcommittee.
join, Glenn?
Sure.
Ellison, do you want to do your?
Sure. I guess I'm stepping in at least as interim lead here for the community engagement and inclusion work group here. Alejandra was our lead, but with her resignation, we are left without a leader right now. I think we've met twice. I see June 23rd on here, but I feel like we've had at least 2 meetings together. But maybe that was just the last one since our last work group. Anywho, sorry, what was that?
No, you're right. It has been twice.
Great, thank you. We have been talking about how we can be reaching out to some local organizations within Clark County to share about the importance of stormwater or other water quality connections that we want to make. One action item that we were thinking about was maybe taking some past presentations that Eric Lambert or others within the Clean Water team have been using to share about protecting water quality and the importance of stormwater and what is a catch basin, things like that, and how we could reuse those presentations to share them with other local groups. We did work on creating a list of local community-based organizations and trade groups and associations that we could potentially reach out to. And I think one idea that was voiced in our last meeting was maybe each of us looking more specifically within our watersheds and finding at least one group to reach out to. It sounds like John is going to be meeting with his HOA, which is huge. I know it's been a big obstacle. I think this group has kind of gotten hung up on like what's the message that we want to be conveying out to these groups. There's so much within stormwater, so I think it's still a big broad topic, but hoping to get some momentum moving forward. Anything you want to add? Well, Emily's not here. John, I guess anything you want to add to that?
No, you covered it really well. I mean, I'll say for the HOA, first of all, how we're going to approach it is where do you live? What watershed do you live in? Do you realize that what you do and what drains into your streets actually goes into Whipple Creek and has an influence on it? And by the way, here's the condition of Whipple Creek and how you influence it again. And here's a list of things, so kind of you're at a buffet, right? A buffet of choices that you can choose from to look into more and perhaps change the way you do things at your home. So that's the concept right now.
That is great. Has anyone ever seen Eric's Enviroscape presentation?
He showed
Yeah.
in that.
Oh, he
That
did.
was good.
Yeah.
Okay, you've seen?
He did it at the tour, on the bus tour.
Okay,
That's the one
sorry.
you're talking about.
You guys,
I haven't
you've seen it
seen
then. Maybe we can do that like again.
It's
sometime.
worthwhile,
Yeah, it's
definitely.
fun. It's really
He's
fun.
great.
He's giving it, so I know we're in good hands.
Yeah, he's so great. Lucky to have him.
Yes.
Thank you, Allison. And I know you have to jump off.
Thank
Hi, Allison.
Thank you, Allison. Non-point source. So we have met 3 times. We have a good framework together. What I would suggest is, because it's of course in a folder that some of you can't access. So at least that's what I thought. So it would be good for those that have not been part of our group planning that to give it a look. In particular, the afternoon session wants to be, the focus really needs to be on innovation. You know, what are things that that other agencies, entities that work on non-point source pollution would have that aha moment. You know, there's something that they weren't aware of, right? The discussion we've had is like, you know, we don't want to have this to be topics that are just preaching to the choir for groups that already live and breathe this every day. We want something to come out of this to be new for them. So again, we have some ideas in there, but we're really looking for additional ideas because Devin's going to be sending out invitation for speakers. And that was really quick and dirty. So the rest of you that are on it, please jump in.
Yeah, we lost our 4th member.
Awesome.
We had our entire team.
Your whole
member.
committee.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, I haven't written to Oi yet because I just wanted to make sure that I had the go ahead tonight. So I was waiting for tonight to actually have the letter written at home to, you know, talk to him about doing his.
That's great. That's a great presentation. Or great, not presentation, what they do.
Yeah.
But what's your time frame for looking for feedback?
I think that I think we should probably have one more touch point just to say the agenda's final, and then
Okay.
then the next step is we have drafted speaker invitation emails to go out, and then I also saw a draft of the save the date a flyer that has been made by our community engagement and inclusion team. Our PIO asked that we don't send anything out until mid-August, which is like a week or 2 away. So I'd say, I would say, I would hope that we can, you know, maybe touch base one more time next week and then get the speaker invitations out and save the date out next week as
You
and the
want the
press release.
subcommittee to touch base next week? Is that what you're
I
suggesting?
think if we could touch base one last time or even over email to finalize, I think that would be helpful.
So then we
we were
get comments by early next week.
Let me open my calendar just
For-
to see
for
what my
ideas.
availability is.
Well,
Meaning
if
that-
you want me to look at, if you kind of like bracketed ideas about technology, like you want technology vendors, do you want practitioners, do you want universities, do
You know-
you want all the above? I mean, how are you,
Right now, it's more practitioner side.
so something
It
not.
doesn't
just in
have to
our-
be limited to that. Doesn't
Not
have to be limited to that. That's
Yeah.
where we've gone.
Yeah, we don't have any vendors identified. Fairly
Yeah.
for this symposium.
I get nervous about vendors. I'm not just the appearance of endorsing a vendor. So we have to be a little careful about that, like anyone who's selling a product. Unless it's like research on EduField practices that talks about a vendor. We need to be a little careful there.
Oh,
What?
the Oregon Association of Nurserymen is having their huge, it's like a nationwide convention in Portland this month.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I'm gonna go. I already paid, and I was just like, I didn't know if somebody from Clean Water want to go for some reason. Or is there something you want me to look for while I'm there?
Can you send that to me? I haven't had that on my radar. I think that would be
Yeah, it's
interesting.
huge. It's
Just wrote
3
that
days
down.
long.
Very cool.
And for the first time, I opened up the Digger magazine, and they had hedgerows in there. They had a huge article on hedgerows and using native plants of different, heights and everything along fields to, anyways, okay.
No, you're good. I think that would be great. I just looked at my calendar. I'm available on Tuesday and Friday next week if we want to touch base. If that doesn't work, then we can communicate via email.
But yeah, I don't have it.
Tuesday would work for me, but not Friday.
Okay.
So I'd say maybe we could send an email out with the draft agenda so others can look at it. That would get us past the access issue at least. with a request for feedback by maybe Monday week. I know it's a very quick turnaround time,
I think that's doable.
but because everybody here but you, Glenn, is actually on the subcommittee, so
Yeah, I'll be on the side.
I don't know if that would be possible
Want to
for
join
you
us?
to, I give it a review.
I'm glad that
I'm
I
just
volunteer
kidding.
for Alice.
You're gonna be involved in that too, Ben. This is perfect.
You saying no, good job.
So I didn't say yes.
And I have a block in my calendar tomorrow for 3 to 5. I'm supposed to be, I'm presenting at the planning commission tomorrow. If you guys want to come, it's at
Oh.
5:30, but, just 15 minutes, actually, probably don't, you can catch it another time.
What are we doing next Tuesday?
Oh, I also potentially have
know.
availability on Monday afternoon
What
because
Monday's open
I'll
all
look
day
and
for
see.
me, so, but that would be, well, I don't know how quick we get feedback.
how about this? I'll send an email tomorrow to get, it would either be Monday afternoon or Tuesday between 11 and 3 that I could connect.
I mean, we're probably only talking to a few people, right? Emily is out.
Correct.
Glenn, you would see it for the first time. Reading's not been on, so you would
But this is the,
see draft agenda.
On-point source.
this is the nuts. Yeah, this is the symposium.
Do you just have a chance to maybe send out the draft agenda tomorrow, Alice, and ask for feedback by Monday, and then we can meet and talk
Yeah,
about it.
Sure.
Okay. And then I don't know if you guys are able to finalize a time on Tuesday, but I'm available 11 to 3 essentially. If you want to just pick a time.
What, too?
Oh, yeah, how about two?
2? Does that work for you?
I don't have my calendar. Sorry.
It's okay. We'll come back to it. We'll circle back tentatively sometime between 11 and 3 on
I know I have
Tuesday.
some-
Okay. Well, we'll see each other at lunch tomorrow. Maybe we can try
I'll
to.
bring my calendar.
Okay. I love it. Okay.
All right, so the SMAP, Emily and I met a couple of different times. We also met with Clean Water staff, Rod, Jeff, Devin, to really start trying to open up, is there value added in terms of doing a couple of exercises? Number one, risk management, looking at things that are required by a SMAP, such as illicit discharge detection and elimination, and saying, okay, if our goal is to, buckle down, let's crank down 20% more this year. Is that going to cause the community to turn upside down and saying, like, what the heck are you doing looking at my pipes? I'm tired of people, trudging on my property. Those kinds of things at a large scale, not necessarily getting into that level of detail, but going through programmatically all the elements that are required in a SMAP and saying, what are some of the higher risk things that are going to create some friction or, create execution risks, when you start developing a new type of project and implementing in the field, learning curves, all those things. So, we talked to Devin's group about it. I don't know if that's, been aired out yet or decided upon. But the other topic that we really wanted to brainstorm with them was the notion of how will we know we're successful, going back to your, point earlier about measuring climate action. You set a lot of goals or you put a lot of projects on the street. How are you going to monitor those? What measures of effectiveness and who are you accountable to? Well, we're accountable to council, and I want to be able to go to council, either annually or biannually on the selected base in the Lower Salmon Creek watershed and say, we are making some pretty good progress here. And here's how we're measuring. Here's our scorecard. 4 simple quads. We're green on this quad. We're yellow here. We're red on this one. And we're green. Some simple way of relating meaningful information to them and saying the SMAP was a worthwhile idea. Not only did we have to do it, but here's some quantifiable ways of assessing it. So again, willing to engage with staff when you guys are ready. I know you guys are still trying to hire people, moving, do all kinds of other things, but I think those 2 exercises may have some value. So that's kind of where we ended up distilling it down. And I know Osborne's a great contractor. They've already been meeting with the county. We want to be engaged in that and take a look, either do field views or take a look at their project plans, those kinds of things. And I think those are still useful things, not to be, riding herd on the contractor. That's Devin, whoever project managing that, that's their job. But to add some value, just an extra pair of eyes. Hey, been there, done it, hey, what about this, so that's kind of where we're at. Questions with this map?
Well, I like the stoplight analogy, the yellow, red, green. Forest Service did something like that too.
Sure. Yeah, it just kind of, Glenda Willie's it dumbs it down enough to make it easy to understand, right?
I like it.
Yeah.
Also, I do have some substantial updates I can share with you. Probably not at this time, but I can send
Cool.
over email.
Yeah,
That our contractors cranking out a ton of stuff. We have, and they are scheduling some public involvement in surveys for the public to identify problem areas in September. So Eric has been working on that and getting a community engagement consultant on board. So we should probably schedule our next check-in meeting since there's been enough progress where I think
yeah,
we have something that you can review and provide input.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. And if they ever did turn in a PMP, project management plan, love to see it, just to kind of check their milestones, see where there's points of intervention that make sense. If we could sit in on a review, just be a couple of, flies on the wall, whatever.
Right.
Certainly have it.
Perfect.
Yep.
I think these are really interesting ideas. I do love the mapping and the monitoring and reporting. And so from our perspective, I think these are really good recommendations. And I'd love to just sit with Devin and Jeff and kind of align this with the permit reporting requirements. There's a lot of different work going on, but being able to present that visually, I think is a real asset you've hit on. I really like the idea.
Absolutely, Jenny. I think, we don't want to make extra work. We want to leverage the existing work.
Yeah.
And I think there's plenty of ways to do that. It's just seeing enough of the work product to be able to help give you the feedback.
Thank you. We really
Thank you.
appreciate your suggestions. All right.
Last one. Oh, do we have one more? Wait, yep. Yeah,
All right.
it's actually my
Safe
wedding
travel.
anniversary today, so I'll have to pop out of here by.
You told us.
No, it's okay. Like, this is my job. This is scheduled, like I didn't know. We celebrated last night, so we
We're already
celebrated.
15 minutes over, so maybe we should just,
Yeah.
wrap it.
It's good going last.
I appreciate it. I'll see you tomorrow.
See you, Tracy.
We have a board meeting at 7 a.m. So Tracy and I see each other at 11 hours.
I'll give two quick things on this. They're the same as the other. Risk management for the executing the product or projects over 5 years, and how do we assess success? Is there, those were the two things, and I think Jeff may have had some good ideas there. He was just kind of stricken on time at the when we first started a day like these things, but I think those two things are probably worth exploring a little bit more too.
And I think what we focused on, if I were just to add, you guys had a lot of questions around how we're tracking. We brought in all this revenue and how we're spending it. So we spent some time walking through and showing you some of the dashboards we have. And I remember us landing though on how can we then look at the services, because that's the area, and developing those performance measures and checkpoints, essentially an adaptive management framework, so that we're measuring our success. And because we have that financial tool, but how are we comparing that to our service delivery? That's the important nexus for us to make.
Yep.
And a lot of the services we're delivering right now are hiring,
Right.
which I'm
Right.
so excited about. We'll have 26 by October, 26 people. So from 18 this year. But yeah, Harrison started. Speaking of that,
Love the new digest. I thought that was really useful.
thanks. I found a typo in it. My apologies, but a big goal. My big goal for asking our man, and Alice facilitated that. I do want to acknowledge that Alice did a great job putting together the packet this time and got it out a week in advance. It was a
Very.
ton of information. That does take a lot of work, and the division digest required, Allison coordinating with all the managers, all the updates to compile all of that and facilitate Jenna and the presentation. So thank you, Alice. That was a huge
was very helpful. I was able to pace out that meeting a lot.
You're like, I read it all.
Yeah.
So hopefully that gives you a little bit of a sense too of some of the things we're working on and helps fill some gaps if you have questions, and planning to continue this update so you guys know what happens between commission meetings. And if you do have, since we're short on time, if you have any questions about this, happy to take those one-on-one, or if you have something quick. Big updates, we're treating milfoil.
I need to take 2 minutes of your time before we
Happy to do
head
that.
out the door and talk to you about that.
Okay,
Okay.
fantastic. Are there any questions about?
There is a new RFP opportunity that'll be coming up really soon, so, we'll let you know when that's coming. And then just encourage everybody, to, recruit, for the recruitment for the new clean water commissioners.
So when will the actual recruitment information be going out publicly?
It's already.
It went out 2 weeks
Oh,
ago.
it's already out.
It went out the 18th of July.
Oh,
Do
okay.
you want to resend it
Mhm.
and just so folks have it at the top of your inbox? There was a news release that went out. I think it made a call meeting. You picked it up. Did it come
It was
in?
in the materials for this meeting.
Okay, sorry.
Was there like a expiration date to buy?
End of business on the 25th. We will probably be reviewing first thing on the 26th.
Of August.
August.
Starting our screening
Okay.
and we should probably,
So
I
there'll
could-
be a lot.
I could help with that. I'm still about.
that'd be great.
So that's, I think,
We do on the RFP topic. So Jeff is hiring somebody to help support the Cougar Creek 3 restoration, finalizing the design. And I believe there's an implementation component. I don't want to misspeak, but like Glenn, like you and Emily participated on that RFP review committee, Jeff has asked if 1 or 2 commissioners would be interested in helping select the contractor. It is a repairing restoration project. So my thought initially was, John, you might be good for that if you're in town, or anyone who's
I'd be down.
interested. Glenn's interested.
What's the time frame?
Oh goodness, when does it
Well, you
close?
can tell me about.
Let me think of, I don't know when it closed, but I will figure out when it closed.
Okay.
And Jeff's on vacation, much needed. But
went out mid-July, July 16th, I think when it went out. I don't know when it closes.
and he did have a pre-application webinar, and like, I think 6 firms attended. I don't know if he's received responses yet, but then we'll be doing the selection. Wants to engage at least 1 or 2 of you. So I'm hearing you're interested. If the time frame
Yeah,
works,
the time frame
Okay.
works,
let me write that down.
and I'll try to draft up a letter for the climate change.
And I would say, no rush on that. I think it's not till December. But if you want it until
Oh,
your
that's good.
October meeting,
Yeah, I won't be here for the October.
you're gonna be here for the symposium though, right?
Yes, I will be
Okay,
here.
thank goodness. Sorry, I can't keep everything in my head. Thank goodness. Okay,
I'll be in Tahiti for your meeting, so I'm not gonna.
Ooh,
I
I
want
don't know.
He's taking a cruise ship across the,
Pacific,
Pacific.
yeah, from Seattle to Sydney, Australia.
Oh my
wow.
God.
So we go out.
wow.
That's 22 days, and then we're doing a week in Sydney.
amazing.
Enjoy the flying fish.
That sounds
We'll
great.
see a few.
Yeah, knock on wood that nothing happens. And
Yeah.
that we're
Oh, that'd be
prepared.
beautiful.
Nothing will happen. It's gonna be
Yeah.
amazing.
Father-in-law sending some help.
I hear you.
The adjourn is
That's-
8:20.
Are we adjourning?
I think we're ready to adjourn. Motion to adjourn.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Seconded. Everybody in favor of adjourning, or should we just hang around for
Yes.
another?
Well, you don't have a quorum, so it's either you get up and leave or you sit around.
I'm
and
putting
wait.
a comment in. This commission needs to put in a break so people get up and walk around. Do it 2.5 hours, a long time to be sitting, but we really appreciate all your guidance and input. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jenny, for
Thanks,
sticking with us.
Jenny. Appreciate
Thank you.
All right. Good evening.
Okay.